Hello and welcome to episode 4, series 2 of Foraging and Feasting with me, Vix, from the Family Foraging Kitchen. And today we are staying in our very humble, just outside your back door, British garden. Now the reason why I've decided to choose this location for this episode is because now it is February, the temperatures are rising, and with it is our desire to get into our gardens and have a good tidy up, ready to plant what we put in the spring to grow and harvest in the summer and autumn months. But before you get into your gardens with all your tools and your trowels and your lawn mowers, please just stop and have a look at what is actually growing here and what the purposes and what the uses of those plants are, because we are going to talk today about 5 beautiful common garden weeds that we can actually harvest rather than weed and turn into a beautiful lunch for you and your family. Not only that, but resist the temptation at the moment to get the mowers out until the temperatures have risen slightly higher. That is because we need to look after our UK pollinators, and at the moment the ground is full of solitary bumblebees who are burrowing down just underground waiting to wake up, and also we have lots of insects and beetles and all kinds of things that are waiting just until spring is properly here. So resist, come out, have a look at what weeds you have growing and how you can utilise those in your diet. So welcome to episode 4, all about the edible garden weeds right outside your back door. So number 1 on our list today is right under your feet on your garden lawn. Now, providing you don't treat your lawn with any herbicides or pesticides or chemicals, it is a plethora of wild ingredients at this time of year. So come and have a look at what you really have growing. We are obsessed in this country with weeds, but we have to look at our obsession and think, why are we so troubled by these plants? What is their purpose and why are they actually here? And a really beautiful lawn weed that lots of people get very upset about and want to pull out and put in the compost so they've got a nice, perfectly green lawn is this humble plant here, known as the smooth sow thistle. Now, the smooth sow thistle not only grows in garden lawns, often you can see it growing out of walls, you can see it growing in meadows, you can see it on the banks of hedgerow, but it is very, very common in the UK garden. Now, when it's not in flower, it has this smooth, looks like a thistle, but it has no sharp prickles and no little hairs, and it has a hollow stem. And that hollow stem produces a milky latex sap, much like its relative, the dandelion. And in fact, it's quite commonly confused with the dandelion because when it's in flower, it has the beautiful yellow flower heads, which look very similar. But for those of us who know our garden plants and our hedgerow plants, we get familiar with it and we can see it is actually the smooth sow thistle. Now, this was a really celebrated salad herb for many, many years. In fact, it was celebrated in Tudor dishes, it was celebrated in Roman salads, and it left our tables really when we started to cultivate salad greens and grow things that we preferred the flavour of. It is quite bitter, but bitters are incredibly good for us, as is the rockets that we buy in the supermarket now. The beauty of this is it's not in a little plastic bag, which when you open up, all that horrible farty-like gas escapes, you eat some of it and you throw the slimy rest of the mess into the bin. So come into your lawn, have a look. Do you have these beautiful rosettes of smooth sow thistle? If you do, this is one you are definitely going to want in a beautiful salad dish. And in fact, today I'm going to show you how to make a smooth sow thistle and tomato salsa, which we're going to enjoy on a lovely rustic sourdough loaf. Number 1, smooth sow thistle. So number 2 on the list today is a plant which gardeners absolutely detest. That is because it likes to throw its seeds all over the garden, and it gets into your raised beds and your flower patches, and it makes a nuisance of itself. But when I see it, what I'm thinking of is sandwiches, a sandwich ingredient, a pesto ingredient, a salsa ingredient, and a salad herb. And what I'm talking about is the very common hairy bittercress. Now, if I just take some out here, this is something that you'll see in lots of garden trugs when people are weeding things out by hand. And hairy bittercress is a very spicy cress. So you could use it instead of the cress you would buy from a shop to mix with your eggs to go in your sandwiches, to put on your cheese, or just to pepper up a salad bowl. It has these little tiny white flowers and then these little almost mustard seed pods growing off the top. And when you look at the leaf, on the stem. They go in pairs up the stem, finishing in a 3. And they grow in these little basal rosette forms, and they are so common in flower pots, in the edges of beds. So do pull them out. When you smell, it has a very mustardy crest-like smell. It's very powerful, and this is not for people that don't like the taste of mustard or strong flavours, but I love that. I think it just adds that peppery, spicy kick that you need to lots of dishes. And again, it was a favourite salad herb used for absolute millennia until for some reason we forgot about it. So do utilise and harvest rather than weed things out of your garden, a great one being hairy bittercress. Moving on to a feature that's going to be in many of your gardens this spring is the beautiful, delicate speedwell. Now there are many kinds of speedwell. Common ones are the germander speedwell, otherwise known as bird's eye speedwell, and its genus is Veronica. Now speedwells are this very delicate little garden plant. I'm going to pull one out for you, and they have these gorgeous little blue-like purple flowers which, when they're fully open in the sun, have these little tiny like prongs which come out of the middle. They're absolutely a beautiful delight. Very small, but worth a great deal. Now, medicinally, if you suffer from sore eyes or you get eye infections, especially if you have children, which is quite common to get a gunky or a scabby eye, if you were to put this into water and make an infusion, a little bit of warm water, put in the leaves of the speedwell, let it cool, then with some cotton wool, if you dab that around the eye in the infected area, it will help to reduce the swelling and the itching and clean all the gunk away from the eye. They're known as speedwells. What a curious name. Well, long ago they used to sew speedwells into the corner of clothing when people were going on a journey, because especially in places that have Celtic origins, like here in Cornwall or Scotland or Ireland, they would say that they would ward off evil like witches and devils and orcs and things that you would meet on the road, and have your journey speedy and well so you would come home and return safely. So it's got this wonderful sort of mythology and plant lore about it, but it will be in your garden. Now, not just medicinally, it makes a beautiful, delicate salad herb. And actually, it's said to have, when the leaves are crushed, a smell and a flavour almost like a tea. Now, I don't particularly get that tea flavour, but what I do get is a mild salad green that's really high in vitamin A, C, K and B. It's high in iron, and it's just a lovely, delicate thing to have throughout the salad bowl. Not only because it's pretty, but these little fat flowers just give it that aesthetic differentness when you have a lot of greens in your bowl at this time of year. So the speedwell, germander speedwell, otherwise known as bird's eye speedwell, a beautiful common garden weed or wild edible. So I've come now to the edges of one of my favourite flower borders, and I'm looking here at 3 things which I would normally pull out and make space for the other plants to grow. But as I'm pulling them out, one of them is a beautiful wild edible. Now it's nice that we have these 2 plants together because both of them are in the buttercup family, but only one buttercup is edible, and that one is called lesser celandine. So if I pull out a lesser celandine leaf, which is our edible buttercup, and I pair that against our creeping garden buttercup, which is not edible, you can quite clearly see the difference. Now, lesser celandine is almost heart-shaped, and it's got a very waxy texture to the leaf. It's almost like a lily pad as such. It's got that waxy sort of texture. And it has these markings, these light indentations that go around the outside of the leaf, slightly lighter green. When I turn the leaf over, it's completely different again. It's got these beautiful little delicate veins that run all over the back, and the back of the leaf is like a silvery colour. Now compare that then to the inedible buttercup. It is a hairy, so if you notice, it's got a fine tuft of hairs all over the stem, and then it has this triophylate-shaped leaf, which again is very hairy. So hairy and smooth, so we're going to put this one down because this one is definitely not edible, but this one is one of the beautiful salad greens of spring, and we're coming into spring now. February's a very short month, and this is the right time to be eating your lesser celandine leaves, because once they flower, they change their makeup and they become almost inedible, so they're not right to eat. They give carcinogens in the body. You don't want that. What you want to do is be eating them before the plant has flowered. So these beautiful little heart-shaped leaves, I would pull these out, making space for my garden ornamental flowers, and I'll be picking those out and putting those into my salad bowl. And my creeping buttercups, well, I'm going to leave a few for the pollinators and the bees because they like to use the yellow flowers, but the rest I'm going to push back, making space for everything that I pop in to grow. So that is number 4, lesser celandine. So last but by no means least is the very humble dandelion. Now I know we spoke about dandelions in series 1, but we didn't speak about them in this context within your garden. And there is not a garden, or there shouldn't be a garden in Britain, that doesn't have a dandelion growing. Because if you weed them out and if you spray them out and cover them in glyphosate, you're doing 2 terrible things. Number 1, you're taking away essential drainage in your soil. Dandelions have a great taproot which will improve drainage and will help everything else around it grow. Number 2, if you get rid of dandelions, you're taking away an essential plant for the pollinators, those bees that we were talking about at the very beginning of the episode. They're also a really great vegetable. Now, the dandelions that I'm looking at today are poking up between the stones in my patio. Now, I see a lot of this, especially with the older generation. They have these knives that fold out and they spend a long time digging these up and rooting them out and throwing them into the compost. Again, my mantra is never weed, always harvest. Because yes, they are growing through the cracks in my patio, and no, I don't particularly want them there, so I'm going to take them out and put them into a salad today. So I'm looking at these, look at these incredible, tiny little baby dandelions. Aren't they cute? Now, the jaggier the dandelion leaf, the less bitter that they are. And when dandelions grow and they get rounder, the more bitter they become. These baby, tiny microgreens almost are not very bitter at all and can be easily picked out and just thrown into the salad bowl with any other kind of ingredient. So, dandelion, tooth of the lion, like a jagged lion's tooth. And if I get down here, you can see that I've got plenty growing. It won't take me very long to harvest enough for a beautiful garden lunch. Now, the one thing that I should tell you about dandelions is let a few of them flower, because those flowers not only are good for the bees, but are lovely if you pull the heads off and scatter the yellow blossoms through the salad itself. They give a nice buttery lemon-like flavour. And also, if you pull the flower heads off and you dip them into a rice flour, and make like a rice flour batter and put them into oil and shallow fry them, they taste like mushrooms, which is really interesting and odd, but true. Try it at home. But today we're focusing on the tiny baby leaves, full of beta-carotene, full of vitamin C, full of iron, the beautiful, humble dandelion. So here we are, I've had a lovely morning out harvesting what some might consider a nuisance in the garden and what I consider as lunch. And I would very much like you to now do the same. Go out into your gardens, have a look what's in your lawns and in your borders, and then bring them to the table. And what we're going to do is we're going to celebrate the humble and lost art of the salad. Now, salads have a really bad name in this country. Quite often it's a little garnish on the side of a plate consisting of lettuce, cucumber and tomato, and quite often that gets sent back to the kitchen and not even eaten. Now, the Romans, they introduced the salad into this country and they would celebrate the humble vegetable, the humble herb, and they would layer them all together and they would add a couple of ingredients, salt and vinegar, and they were essential for bringing out the flavours of these herbs. We got really obsessed with salads in the Tudor times. We got really obsessed with salads in the 16th century, so much so that the Jontry would send servants to London to go and buy salad oils, which was something that we started to get an obsession with. And in fact, lots of them are still on the market today. I have a couple here with me. I have some chili and ginger. I've got some balsamic vinegar. I've even got some nice truffle oils. I've got all sorts of things on my table, just out of my kitchen, to celebrate the ingredients that I've pulled out of the garden lawn. So what do we have? Quick recap. We have our smooth sow thistle, our wonderful opulent salad green, which actually has more antioxidants than black tea and red wine. This is incredibly good for us. So I'm going to pop that one there. We have our only buttercup which is edible, our lesser celandine, which we must only harvest before it has flowered. Do remember that. We have our spicy, mustardy, hairy bittercress. It's going to give us a peppering to the dish. We've got our baby dandelions, our wonderful free rocket. Beautiful. And we have our speedwells, giving us a little bit of delicacy and a little bit of colour to the dish. Now, it would be very easy for me to serve you just a bowl of greens and say there is a salad, but it's nice to add other things that we have in our kitchen. Have a look in your salad bowl. Why not try putting an apple in? I've got a nice, crunchy, succulent pepper. Why not put some of that in? So let's give things a little chop. And then we're going to start to add our wild ingredients and layer them up into a salad. I really feel that salads should be a main part of your diet. They shouldn't be something that's eaten just before a meal. They shouldn't really be something just on the side of a dish that you're creating. They should be in the centre of the table. They should be something that you want to talk about, that you want to share with your friends and be excited about. And if you've got it all for free from your garden, that you haven't had to look after or plant or care for, all the better. So, rough chop an apple. I like apple in my salads. I like the crunch that it gives. And if you're at the right time of year in the autumn, of course, you can go to local orchards. You can put your British free apples in your salad bowl. So, bowl, pop in the apple. Now, salads derive from the word sal, which is Latin for salt, and there's a clue as to how they used to garnish their salads back in the early Roman times. And of course now we have very interesting dressings that you could put on. If you wanted a more opulent, decadent dressing, you could go sort of for a Caesar salad dressing. If you wanted to be very British, you could whack on that very bright, colourful salad cream, that yellow, interesting taste stuff. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to put salad cream on everything. I think it's a very British taste. But we're going to go for a little bit more sophisticated flavourings today. So pop those there. A little bit of pepper, just to give a bit of colour to the dish, really. Soon all our edible wildflowers are going to be out, so we can start to add our violet flowers, our gorse flowers. In fact, gorse flowers are in flower now, so if we were out foraging in the hedgerow, we could certainly pop in some different colours into this dish. But these are just the flowers, the herbs from my garden. So there we are. Punch in the bowl. Okay. Now let's put in our greens. Let's layer it up. So, lesser celandine. All you have to do with these is give them a wash. Some of the larger ones, rip them up. Don't want too many stalks in there. Now we want some of our peppery cress. Now when you pull cress out, it has a shallow root system and it can be quite muddy. So make sure you give them a really good rinse under the tap before you put the leaves in the salad bowl. Just pull those off. These really are wonderful. They're such a forgotten herb and they're rarely talked about, but we should be celebrating these free spicy herbs that we have growing just in our plant pots right outside our back door. Oh, some more cress. Where's some more cress? There you are. Pop you in there. The flowers too, the cress flowers are nice, just in the dish. There you are. Some more of our lesser celandine. And I want to put in my speedwells. Now, as I said, these are delicate, so I just rip the tops as you're going down the stalk, just with a twist. Okay, and then our free rocket, our little dandelions. Now we had some of our baby, our microgreens that we can pop in. They go straight into the bowl. These larger ones. Again, they're not too large. That's about right if you don't want a bitterness. The bitter part of a dandelion is located in the centre part of its stem, just here. So if you're really averse to bitter flavours, you could spend a while pulling the outer leaves away from that stem and putting them into the bowl. But I really like bitter flavours, and I always tend to use a slightly sweeter salad dressing on my salads because I have a sweet tooth. So you soon get used to having that bitter note on the back of your palate. So let's put in some dandy leaves. They smell good for you. There's something about a fresh dandelion You really, really can't go wrong. In the dish, there we are. Layer, layer, layer. Now let's pimp this salad out a little bit more. I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to put in a few capers. I like capers in my salad. You can make your own capers slightly later in the year with the unopened buds of oxeye daisy flowers, for example, or green elderberries make a good caper substitute. But these fresh capers going in. And I've got some barberries. Now barberries, they're not from this country. They're used in lots of Persian cuisine. But I find that any dried fruit, you could use dried cranberries, you could use raisins, you could chop up some apricots or dates. Just gives it a nice little difference in texture and flavour. So then we want to put in some, I'm going to put in some salad cheese, why not? A bit of protein. This is just a little bit of feta, a tangy cheese. If you're vegan, you could pop in a vegan cheese. You could put in some, you could even put in some tofu chunks. Slightly braised tofu might be quite nice, but I do eat cheese and I like salad cheese, so that's going in as well. But remember, this is all just extra. These are making salads special. If you didn't have the money or you didn't have the extra ingredients, you could very much just have these salad greens in the bowl with a drizzle of some vinegar and oil and a little sprinkle of salt. Cheese. Yum yum. Just wipe my hands. Salt. Now this is a fine sea salt. You could use a table salt or a pink salt. Not too much, but you definitely want a little bit. Why not honour where the word salad comes from and add a bit of salt. And then we want some oil. Now this is just a Greek olive oil. You could use a rapeseed oil. In fact, using olive oil was quite a later thing to do. It really didn't come into fashion in this country until quite late on. We would use sunflower or rapeseed oil. And then I'm going to put on some of my... should have opened this before we started. Some of my chilli and ginger dressing, because I have it here. It's February, so what you might find if you had nice hampers and things for Christmas is that people would have put in nice vinegars and oils. This is one I was gifted, so why not use it? There we go. Look at those colours. Beautiful. So, salad one. Voila. I'm going to pop that there. And now I want to make something with the smooth sow thistle. So let's pop that down. So, in our little portable whizzer, so if you're in the kitchen at home, you could use one that you plug in. I want to put a good handful of my washed smooth sow thistle leaves. In we go. Now stems as well. Stems and leaf in there. And now I'm going to put in some hazelnuts. You could use any nuts. You could use a pine nut. You could use peanuts, although I prefer the flavour of hazelnuts. Pecan or cashew. If you haven't got any nuts, put some sunflower or pumpkin seeds in. So I'm just going to give these a little crush. Put them there. Slight crush with the back of the knife. We're on a precarious garden table, so we've got to be careful not to have everything off on the ground. If you wanted to make these slightly easier to work with, you could soak them into some hot water first for about an hour. If you soak nuts for about an hour in water, they become soft and easier to work with, but we want to crunch in our salsa. Go, pop some nuts in there. Right, tomato. I went to the shop this morning and I bought some nice looking juicy tomatoes. Any tomato will do. This one, look at that, how beautiful that tomato is. Obviously if you grow tomatoes in your garden a little bit later in the year, you could be adding your homegrown produce. But we're in February, so we're going to go in for these ones bought from the local veg shop today, which pair really nicely with those free sow thistle greens. You don't want to overload this because it won't whiz around. Let's try a little bit at a time. Parsley, commonly grown garden herb, goes really nicely with the flavour of those sour and bitter smooth sow thistle leaves. Not too much, you don't want to overpower. There you go, about half of what you put in to the free greens in the pot. little bit of garlic. Now this is wild garlic season, so if you're out in the hedgerow, you could put in your 3-cornered garlic, your crow garlic, your Babington's leeks or your elephant garlic. And the ramsons are just now starting to pop their little leaves up out in the woodlands. But we're not in there, we're at home, we're in our garden, near our kitchen, so we're going to use a nice garlic clove. Give it a crush before you pop it in. Got a wobbly table. Okay, in it goes. Some more salt. Right in front of me. Oil. Now where did I pop the oil? There we are. Drizzle, drizzle. Want a good amount of oil because you want this to spin around in the pot. And last but not least, I want a little squeeze of lemon, just a little bit. Take out the pips. Right, now, lid on. Right. Aha, lovely. So, into a little bowl. Have a lovely sour thistle salsa. There we are. And then a nice loaf of bread. I am a very, very messy cook, inside and outside the house. These sourdough loaves are made locally. I'm very lucky in this village where we live to have such an amazing array of produce and places to acquire it from. Mostly the wild or your garden. So, nice chunk of bread. Let's pull that off. Let's go rogue, let's go rustic. Just like that. So, delve in. Salad. Look at that. All those beautiful, beautiful colours, beautiful flavours. All those green things that you would have normally put in your compost bin and thought nothing of are the basis of your wonderful salad. And a nice dollop of your salsa. And of course, nothing says opulence and decadence after a tough morning gardening. And to pair that nicely with a little glass of wine. And voila! So do go into your gardens, look at what you have. Don't mow them just yet, giving the pollinators a chance to survive, and enjoy the free salad of your garden. Cheers!